Thank you. Please have your seats, everyone. All right, and good morning. This is the Thurston County District Court Civil Protection Order calendar. First thing we're going to do today is go through the calendar. Yeah, we'll send you the survey. We've mailed the notice. And Mules, who I know are also represented by counsel, and respondent here are the Coxes, also represented by counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Cynthia Daly for Attorney of Record Mark Blair for the respondents.
Okay, so we got respondent.
Let's give the Coxes a salute.
Right. And do we have counsel for the McNeils present? All right, I know that they filed a motion to, well, not a motion, let's see.
So we did file an agreed motion in order to transfer this matter to Superior Court.
Oh, that was agreed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they filed an initial motion, and then we filed an agreed motion in order to transfer the court and have the vacate hearing to be heard in the Superior Court.
Oh, no.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, all I was going to do today was let the parties know that per the statute, it needs to be transferred over to Superior Court anyway. So
okay, perfect.
Was all agreed as well, then that's all the better. Okay, I will be signing that order transferring the case over to Superior Court, and then Superior Court will take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Have a good day. All right, let's see, do we have, turning next to matter 26-99, do we have Sarah Worthington present? Ms. Worthington? Okay, looks like we're still working on service.
No, I served him. And then I tried to email the proof of service, and then I got told that wasn't the right way, so I came in and dropped it off as well.
We've got Miss 2 weeks, and we'll
All right, sorry.
Okay, so with that, we've got 2 cases on for this morning. We'll begin with the first in line, 26-106.
Here's our main event.
Kennedy Brennan versus Andrew Klingel. We've got Miss Brennan here in court, Mr. Klingel on Zoom. All right. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
And I know both parties for this case as well as parties for the other case that's on for today have been to court before recently and also heard my introduction on unlawful harassment hearings. So I understand it might be a bit repetitive. I'm not going to take as much time as I usually do because I know the folks here have heard it. But I do think it's a good idea to always start these hearings by at least having a refresher for folks on what we're doing here this morning. I'll wait for Mr. Klingel to, get back. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go over the legal elements for unlawful harassment because, again, I think it's always beneficial to start these hearings having the legal requirements top of mind before we get into testimony from the parties. So I'd like to start by defining unlawful harassment. There are 6 elements to unlawful harassment. The petitioner in these cases, so the folks here in court, have what's called the burden of proof of proving all 6 elements exist by what's called a preponderance of the evidence, which is a fancy way of saying more likely than not. So it's more likely than not that each of these 6 elements exists. The first element is a knowing and willful course of conduct. That's a pattern of behavior evidencing continuity of purpose, essentially that there's an ongoing pattern of behavior that is knowing and willful, and that is intended to be a continuous, essentially a continuous event. Number two, that
All right, this guy's already annoying me. Can we just grant the order?
knowing and willful course of conduct is directed at a specific person. Number three, that knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person is done so without any legal or legitimate purpose. And this, I think it's helpful to take a little bit of time and talk about what it means for legitimate purpose. That is, some factors the court looks at and whether or not the contact is legitimate are things like, was the contact initiated by the respondent? Was it initiated by the petitioner? Is the communication dynamic between the two? Or was there clear notice given from the petitioner to the respondent to stop contact, and contact persists nonetheless? Another thing the court looks at is, does the behavior or the communication, is there evidence that it has the purpose of or the effect of unreasonably interfering with the petitioner's privacy, or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive living environment for the petitioner? So again, does that behavior have the purpose? So is there evidence that the respondent is attempting to interfere with the petitioner's privacy or create an intimidating or hostile or offensive living environment? Or does it have the effect of that? Should the respondent know that this behavior or this communication is having that kind of effect? So that's what we were talking about when there's...
No, that guy was Mitch Kumstein.
Number four, that the knowing and willful course of conduct, which is directed at a specific person without legitimate or lawful purpose, that it's designed to alarm, annoy, or harass the petitioner. So that's where we look at, is there evidence of the purpose of behind this sort of behavior? Number five, does that behavior or communication, would it cause a reasonable person to suffer substantial emotional distress? So it's not just that the petitioner feels aggrieved to a level of substantial emotional distress, but is that reasonable? Is that a reasonable reaction? And number six, then does the petitioner actually feel substantial or emotional distress? So those are the 6 elements of unlawful harassment. I will be going back to those elements as folks provide testimony. If I have questions about an element, maybe being missed or needing some more information on that. And so keep that in mind when folks provide testimony. Ma'am, you here for folks?
This is my mom.
Your mom.
Can she come up here? Is that okay?
She's okay to sit up there. I can only take testimony from non-parties if I make certain findings. So I may not hear from you, but as far as sitting at council.
Okay.
Of course. All right. So those are the legal elements of unlawful harassment. From ground rules for today, as far as providing testimony, is parties address me, don't address each other. I think that actually gets a little bit more difficult when we have some parties in the courtroom and some on Zoom. I think it becomes a little bit easier to start talking to each other. And so it's really important that you direct your comments towards me. So that's number one. And number two, if litigants start talking to each other, or language starts to get out of hand, these hearings are primarily conducted through the exhibits that have already been submitted, and testimony is an opportunity for the judicial officer to ask questions and learn a little bit more about the allegations. And so if I find that testimony is starting to become inappropriate, I can cut it off and just make a decision based on what I've heard already. So keep that in mind, and fair warning to folks that I will do that. And again, I already hit it, but the last thing I'll say is testimony in these proceedings, I like to have it be a little less formal. So rather than come up and read a prepared statement, I think sometimes that's fine, particularly if there's a lot you'd like to summarize and you want to keep your thoughts organized, that's fine. This is primarily, though, an opportunity for me to ask folks questions about what's already been submitted. So please keep that in mind as well. All right, so as far as the procedure goes, I'll start by swearing in the petitioner, because again, it's their burden of proof. I'll hear testimony from the petitioner, then I'll hear testimony from the respondent. Sometimes I'll let the petitioner get the last word since it is their petition, and then make a decision. So with that said, again, we're here with matter 26-106. Kennedy Brennan is the petitioner. She's here in courtroom. Ma'am, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and the whole truth? All right. And before you get started, another thing that I think is sometimes helpful is for me to give a bit of an overview of my understanding of the record. I believe I did this last week as well. Before folks start testifying, that way you can kind of see where I'm coming from and some things that I think may be missing or questions I have. And for your case, I do have some questions that I think some testimony from you might be helpful. So I was not the judicial officer that granted the temporary order, but a temporary order was granted. And having reviewed the petition, I'm reasonably confident that it was granted because there were allegations in the petition of you had alleged that Mr. Klingel had sent you photos of him holding a gun, has made you feel unsafe on multiple occasions, stated things like he would engage in self-harm, things like you don't want to see me get mad, things that we do generally grant temporary orders for. I've had a chance to review the exhibits that you've uploaded, and it would be helpful to see where those allegations are substantiated in the exhibits. And if you'd like to point me in the direction of some of the exhibits, I do have them up now. What I've reviewed is it looks like the Zelle messages are up, and I see those, and I do have some questions about those too. But what I viewed was missing from the file so far is information on those allegations from your original petition. And so if you'd like to provide some testimony on those allegations, if there's evidence in the file, maybe you could point me into the direction of those. But I would like to know a little bit more about those allegations in your original petition. And that's number one. And then number two, it seems to me like the vast majority of what has been filed in the last week are these Zelle messages. And so background information on those, timeline. I said earlier, legitimate communication, whether communication is legitimate or not, includes things like, was the respondent given clear notice that no more communication is welcome, and then they communicate despite that. So if there was, in your view, clear communication to Mr. Klingel to stop contacting you, information on when that may have been and how that was communicated would be helpful as well. So those are the two things that I'm thinking about when I'm looking through the file. So Your Honor, Mr. Klingel, you'll have your chance next. Yep.
Okay.
Right. So Ms. Brennan, with that, you're sworn in. So go ahead.
So as far as like the self-harm, can you see the picture in there that I submitted? There was a text message and he was holding a gun and he sent me a picture. Can you see that in there?
All right, so let's see. Because I've got two batches of exhibits. One has 101 pages, one has 11 pages. Do you know which batch it's in?
Probably the 101 pages. Sorry, there was a lot.
It's okay. Let's see. So there's a picture of him holding a gun, you say?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in there. I like screenshotted it from my phone. So it should just be like a text message type deal.
Do you recall the date of the text?
Oh, it was months ago.
All right, was it? All right, I see there's a text that says, I believe it's from Mr. Klingel. I'm probably better dead than sorry we met, goodbye.
Yes.
Is it that one?
Yeah.
Okay. And that text you say has the picture of the gun.
Yes.
I
Can you
s-
see it?
I see a very grainy picture.
I have a
that's-
picture on my phone if you can look at that. If that's okay. Because I had to print all these off because it wasn't letting me like email everything over. So it's not very like clear.
All right, well, let's hold off on whether that's something we need to look at. So you're saying the text where the text, says, probably better dead, sorry we met, goodbye. That text accompanied a picture of him holding a gun.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, good Lord. Put him in jail. I hate that manipulative crap. I can't stand it. Just put him in jail.
And
I know
can
this
ask
isn't a
you-
criminal case. I don't care. Find a way. Put him in jail.
There's like I wasn't able to really submit anything over this like encounter. But I was at his house one night and he threatened to kill himself multiple times. And that was the night that he was telling me that I didn't want to see him get mad, like all this stuff. He made me pack up all my stuff and get in his car. And then I got in the car and then he looked at me and said, I can't drive, I've been drinking. So then he made me get all my stuff out of the car and I said I was going to get an Uber. So then he took my phone and then I went and slept in one of his kids' room and then he came in there and he wouldn't stop. Like it was just like, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. Like, please talk to me, like all this stuff. And I just kept asking him like, please get out, please get out, please get out. And this went on for hours.
I'm intrigued.
When was this about?
This was a few months ago. Like 4 months ago, maybe. And I had texted my mom that night that I was scared.
All right. And one reason why it's tough for me to follow along with the date is the way, cell phone screenshots work is they give you the time, but they usually don't say what date it's on. So that's,
Sorry.
that's
I
okay.
wasn't really thinking.
No, that's all right. All right. But you're saying that the, some of the threats to self-harm and the statements like, you don't want to see me get mad, those were in person. though,
Yes,
so there's-
yeah.
Okay.
Not all of it was over text.
All right. And then the original petition, you'd stated that he makes me feel unsafe on multiple occasions. Is that in reference to this, that incident? And then are there any others you'd like to
That
talk
just
about?
like, I mean, all the messages, like everything. It doesn't stop. It feels like it never ends. Oh, he told me that when he lived in California, he killed somebody. I don't know.
All right. And then the Zelle messages, can you tell me a little bit about those?
So I had blocked him because I just finally got to my breaking point and I thought to myself, like, I can't keep doing this.
Do you remember when you blocked him?
Can I look at my phone real quick? Is that okay?
Yeah, if
To
you're just
see,
trying to
like, the date?
refresh. Yeah,
Okay. So I blocked him 3/26/2026. That was the day I had texted him and I texted him to leave me alone and to go away. And then I blocked him.
I did see I don't have it in front of me, but I did take a note that on March 26th, there's a text from you to Mr. Klingel asking him to leave you alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Zelle messages started happening, which that's always been a thing because I've blocked him multiple times. And then he'll Zelle me and it's, just like 4 or 5 Zelles a day. And it's so Zelle is like sending money. And I had him blocked on email because he would make new emails and he would email me off those. He would email me off his son's email. So I had to block all those emails. And then he would Zelle me. I didn't know how to block him through Zelle because it's like linked through my bank account. So I'm not really too sure how you do that. And he would just he'd send me money with like these notes attached. It would be like, I'll give you $5,000 if you hang out with me. Like just tons of stuff. Like you can see it in there and it wouldn't stop. And that was after I blocked him. It just kept going and going and going.
Yeah, I see because again, a lot of the messages are kind of date stamped it for a time, but not a date. I think I see one.
Oh, sweet Jesus. $5,000 to hang out with me, my man. That's pathetic. That's pathetic. But if you're going to put out $5,000, you can do a lot better than that. I mean, you can have a whole crew.
That's from March 30th. So but generally speaking, were these were after March
It was
26th?
and it just kept going. Yeah, it was like I can't remember if he emailed me on that day. It might have been the next day it started, but it was just like email after email, or Zelle, because he couldn't email me.
Okay. Has there been any other contact since March 26th besides Zelle, or is that?
If you count him contacting my father.
Right, I see. Right. Okay, so and I do see that in the file here too. So
and my mom actually also contacted him the day that I came here to file. My mom contacted him and let him know, you might want to, leave my daughter alone. She's going to get a restraining order. Just giving you a heads up. And then it was that Friday that I filed, and then Monday I had court, and then he Apple paid me after I had my court hearing, after the protection order was set in place. He had Apple paid me $5.
But he hadn't been served, so he wasn't like officially on notice.
Right. Okay. All right. Understood. Okay. Thank you. And I imagine Mr. Klingel is going to go into his exhibits, and so it will be helpful for me to get an understanding of where you're coming from before I turn it over to him. So Mr. Klingel's exhibits are, text messages between the two of you. I think I was able to look at dates, essentially November through last couple months.
Yeah.
Where, a lot of communication between the two of you oscillates between friendly and angry. It seems like you had a pretty dynamic relationship, and it's a lot of text about reflecting that over the last several months.
Dynamic? I don't know. I haven't heard all of it, but so far all I'm hearing is power simping. That's all I'm hearing so far. I'm told there's other stuff coming down the way. Let's see.
And so, Mr. Klingel will speak more to those. I think, again, some of the date stamps are tough. I see one March. I'm looking at his exhibits. One recent is March 19th. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with Mr. Klingel, how this started, and what led to you blocking him?
Okay, so I met him like last year, and I'd met him through Instagram. We hung out one night. We went to the bar. When I first met him, he lied to me and told me that he was 34. He also told me that he didn't have kids. Come to find out a month later, he has 2 kids. He's not 34, he's 40. And it was just, the whole relationship was founded on lies. And then it just, as time went on, there was something.
Why did you go out with them? I mean, after the first time. Why? I mean, he's simping and he's nuts, but why are you doing it?
That had happened one night. We went to the casino, and I had gone out to sit in the parking lot, and then he came out and was accusing me of trying to sleep with some random man in the parking lot. And then in that moment, I knew that this is not what I wanted for myself.
Well, were you?
And I told him that, and then it was just like love bombing. It was like gifts and money and this and that, and he was taking me to fancy dinners, and then he was doing this and he was doing that. And so I just feel like I was very enamored by all of these things that were happening, because I'd never really experienced anything.
I like free stuff. Translation. I won't do it. Her mother's there.
Anything like that. And so it was love bombing. Like, I didn't want to be with him, and he knew that. And then it's like I would block him, and then he would email me, or he would send me money, and it would be like, I'll take you here, I'll do this for you, I'll buy you this, I'll buy you that. And it's like he was constantly ordering me stuff. He bought me a car, like all this kind of stuff. So it was hard for me at that point in time to get away.
Dude, this this happens every day. It's so pathetic on both ends. It's so freaking pathetic. I mean, she's cute. She's not bad, but not, yeah, whatever. Get some self-esteem, dude. And you get some self-esteem. How about go out with the guy you actually like?
He helped me like with my bills and stuff, and
both you
like
knuckleheads.
So that's pretty much what it was. I mean, we only dated for like a month and a half, and then I realized that he had lied to me about a ton of stuff. I mean, he bought me a dog, and then I had to move out of my apartment. It's just like, I mean, there was a lot of resentment from me there. And then he would like do stuff for me. So then I'd be like, oh, okay, it's fine. And then something would happen and I would be like, no, this is not what I want for myself. So yeah, there was a lot of hostility because I was very unhappy and because it was very manipulative.
And so you brought up the money.
So you gave all the stuff back and told him to leave you alone, right?
I think a good chunk of the exhibits from Mr. Klingel involve money, it sounds like. So
yeah.
So is it fair to characterize it as while you were dating, was he sort of sending you money for things that you needed or asked for?
He sent me money all the time.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And like he offered most of the time.
And then what, can you speak a little bit about leading up to March 26th and what caused I mean, you've already sort of outlined, love bombing. You've mentioned, a few incidences as well that, you say made you feel scared. Is there anything specifically around March 26th that resulted in the blocking?
It was just, I mean, he was like accusing me of like sleeping with some guy, like, and we weren't even dating. And I was just over it. That's not what I wanted for myself. I didn't feel safe. I mean, there was tons of stuff that had happened throughout the relationship, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't want that for myself. I mean,
that we weren't even dating as a tell. She was sleeping with the other guy. Not that it matters. They weren't dating. I believe her. But that's a huge tell right there.
I was at the bar one night and he picked me up and then he like ran inside because I was hanging out with my two friends and he wanted to see who was in there. And he like went in there and was talking to them and they were just kind of like, what are you doing? It was just, there was like so much stuff that had happened. It's really hard like for me to even reflect on all of it.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Brennan. I'm going to turn it over to Mr.
about covers
Klingel.
it right there.
And we'll swear him in. And so, Mr. Klingel, you'll have this your opportunity to respond. I do want to, try and focus the response to, we're not here to sort of, litigate necessarily the nature of your relationship together, and whether there was lies and deceit or anything like that. You'll have your chance to sort of characterize it to the extent it's relevant to today's hearing. And you asked Ms. Brennan about your relationship, and you'll have a chance to respond there. But really, for purposes of today's hearing, what I'm concerned with and what I'd like specific information around from you is kind of similar to what I asked her about, which is, number one, there's allegations of you threatening self-harm, sending pictures holding a gun, that there is, so information about that specifically, I'd like to know more about from your perspective. Number two, with these Zelle messages, what was going on there as far as contact to Ms. Brennan, after that March 26th kind of notice to stop. And then, I think it is fair if you want to talk about your relationship. I know you're your exhibits are, again, I think it's primarily text messages between the two of you during your relationship. It's hard for me to get a sense of the timeline. But if you'd like to provide a little context about, why these are the messages you felt were necessary for today's hearing as well, you can talk about those. But the things I'm really concerned about are the threats for self-harm, holding the gun, and comments like "don't want to see me get mad," and then the communication over Zelle more recently, I think is top of mind for me. So with that in mind, sir, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, I didn't see the evidence. You said something about 101 pages. That I didn't see that online.
Oh my God, he sounds like a whiny bitch too.
So that's what I was trying to clarify, so I could skim over real quick to see what was talked about.
Well, it's in the court file, so it's accessible the same way your exhibits are accessible. It's like they were uploaded, at least uploaded on our end last Wednesday.
Okay, because when I'm on the website, the only thing I see from her is exhibits where there's 11 screenshots.
I don't get it. This guy likes boys. You can't convince me otherwise. You cannot convince me otherwise. I mean, I don't know, but I'd be shocked if it's not the case. What the hell is going on here?
Okay. I'll take a look on that. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if she opens,
I'm gonna look at what's in the batch of 11 too. We've got, and we're checking to see what we can see through the website.
Okay.
It is.
Stop it, Fletcher boy. I don't need a whole
all right. So we just accessed the court file from the website the way you would have done it, and it looks like they all are.
I'm trying to provide serious analysis here.
PET exhibits. There's I'm looking at it now. There's the one with the 11 and one with the 101.
Okay, well, you know what page it's on, or
it's right underneath. There's a list of folders. You go into PET exhibits, and then there's two line items, and they're each the different batches of exhibits. One has 11 pages and one has 101 pages.
okay, so it's all in the same one then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. And so what it is primarily is, again, the dates I can't suss out exactly, but according to Miss Brennan, and I can see at least one from March 30th, is these are Zelle payments from you to her. I guess I can see actually. Yeah. They're throughout, looks like Zelle payments throughout March, some before and some after March 26th. Okay. And then there's messages as well. So there's one, so I'm looking at one March 30th, payment of $1, and the message is $50 to unblock. And so there's things of that nature. Another one, unblock to send you 100.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish I could see these because I don't believe that was sent after March 25th. So I'm on the, all I see is 1 out of 11 on. So it says, what it says on mine is March 25th, 2, waste of time, March 25th, and then exhibits. I click on exhibits and there's only 11, there's 11 things.
Are you looking at a link, ET exhibits?
How do I get to ET exhibits? Is that in a different?
Have to click on the 10th page.
10th page. Okay, so there should be the
10th
where
page.
You can click on individual pages of exhibits. You go to page 10, which is the last page in the file.
And tells you the exhibits file.
So go to page 10.
Okay, all right.
And then there's a file titled PET, P-E-T, exhibits.
All right, the last thing I'm seeing is 11, and it says, it's the message where the petitioner states, oh yeah, I've gone on dates, don't you worry. That's the last thing I see. That's all. That's
Well, so the exhibits, they're there to support and substantiate allegations. And obviously that's something that I can't tell you what's going on there. I mean, we're able to see it online.
okay.
As far as the allegations, though, of it's kind of messaging her through Zelle by making looks like small payments, some as small as a penny, and then sending a message as part of that. That is the allegation here against you. The exhibits are intended to support and substantiate those allegations.
All right.
So to that, I mean, do you have you're able to testify as far as that allegation?
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to find it so I could prove that those happened months ago, but I can't see it. But I guess where I could start from when she's talking about the gun, I don't see that either. But so this is why the car was relevant to the case, because I bought a Mercedes October 9th, which I submitted. I bought a Mercedes October 9th. Around the middle of November, she gets pregnant. And so on the 21st of November, the petitioner states, if you basically lists out a bunch of demands.
Oh, sweet Jesus. She gets pregnant. I was not ready for this. You know who the father is?
No, that guy was Mitch Cumstein.
And says, if you meet all these demands, which included putting her on the title of my car, she will cancel the appointment. So the 21st, which I've submitted documents that I did it that day, not of genuine consent, but under duress. I did it that day, added her to the title, and then by the 25th, so 4 days later, the petitioner stated that they made a new appointment, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, abortion appointment, but a new doctor's appointment. For the 25th. And then after that, which had I seen
behavior in this case is disgusting.
2 days ago, I would have submitted evidence, but anyway, so the 25th, the petitioner mentions she gets a new appointment, and then I send a picture. I'm probably better off dead. I'm sorry. That's a comment under duress. It's not a comment of her hurting anyone. It's what the petitioner did. I was distressed. I put her on the title. She made a new appointment 4 days later. So I can't. So that's that. It's not that. That's what it was, and she's deliberately trying to deceive that it was anything other than that. And I couldn't submit evidence because I didn't see this. And so then we go to March. We'll go to March. So even on February. So I submitted the evidence the best I could, without timelines, without dates, without knowing what the petitioner was talking about on most things. So February rolls around, it's her birthday. She asked me to take her to dinner for her birthday. And then we roll around to March 3rd, I believe I submitted evidence. She reaches out to me. Hey, do you want to get drinks? So we went to the Brick. So we hung out March 3rd, March 5th, March 11th, March 12th, March 13th, March 17th, March 20th, she spends the night. March 23rd, she asked me to hang out and I say no. March 24th, she asked me to hang out and have sex. I say no. March 25th, she asked me to hang out, in which she states her mom is gone. And that's not including, I also sent evidence of the text messages that we had shared about 4,000 messages since January. So it's unreasonable for me to have known that my messages caused distress. We hung out on seven different occasions in March.
Ma'am, are you a whore? I object to the relevance of that, Your Honor.
All right. What?
I'll tie it up real quick, Judge.
All right, go ahead.
You're not a whore?
And then she asked me to hang out on I think the total was about 14 times in March. She reached out to me to hang out. So March 25th, she asked me to hang out. Hey, my mom's gone. And she asked me for $2,000 to help her move into a new apartment, which it was kind of like a gray area. I didn't say no, I didn't say yes, but she knew that it was leaning towards no. So she, I guess, blocked me because I wasn't giving her the money, not done out of fear. So I wouldn't give her the money. And then, and before she blocks me, she asked me for a couch to order. She asked me, like I said, the money apartment. So a lot of the Zelle, I never send her money after March asking her to unblock me. I mentioned to her that Housemaids was on Stars. I mentioned to her, miss you. Nothing.
What the hell does that mean? Housemaids was on Stars? What language is that? What is he on about?
On Zelle was hostile, threatening, and like I've said in the message or in the evidence I've sent, one day in November, I believe it's November 11th, she said, "Leave me alone," 21 times. And then she asked me to get a hotel room. And I submitted all this. So it's unreasonable for me to know what's true. It was just her radical figure of speech. And so all I really...
There's a show called Housemaids, which is on Stars. And he is aware of when it's on. You can't convince me he's not gay.
Had was 11 documents. And just to touch on the 11 documents I saw, she mentions in one of them, it was how I make up stuff and how I lie. But anyways, I don't know what date that was, but I submitted evidence just when I was going through my stuff. I submitted evidence, and you guys have it listed under Manipulate 5. So she sent that stuff, and then on Manipulate 5, it's her asking, it's her demeaning me, and then
I don't know who watches Stars, but I'll tell you who doesn't watch Stars: heterosexual men.
Manipulate 5. She's asking me for June's dog food. She's asking me for stuff, and then by 8 o'clock at night, she was asking me to buy her flowers. And this was a pattern that I showed numerous times. She would bully me, demean me, criticize me, and then ask me for stuff And then if I didn't meet her demands, she would threaten to block me. It wasn't done out of fear. It was a coercive control / like emotional abuse. So for me it was just how it was. I would just get emotionally abused, and I didn't know what was true. It was just constant. It was constant. And so, sorry.
That's all right. So I think I understand what you're saying. I want to get some responses from Miss Brennan so Miss Brennan, back to you. So a couple of things that Mr. Klingel uploaded that do have some timestamps that I think are worth looking at is a text exchange from March 25th in which it appears that and this is dated, the title of the exhibit is March 25. And it looks like you ask him, are you awake? Then there's no response. I'm sorry, why am I being ignored? A couple of times you're asking basically if he's ignoring you. And see this reference to my mom's gone. And then it sounds like March 26th, then there's the block. And so I'm just curious if you have, and it looks like the last one I see on March 25th might be from 8 o'clock in the evening. Picture of you, and I think maybe June is the dog. Do you have, so on that front, as far as the asking that he not contact you again on March 26th, sounds like what Ms. Klingel here is saying is up until then, there was essentially, sounds like requests from you to talk to him and didn't want to be ignored by him. Do you have any response to that?
Well, I think that it was just very manipulative. Like, that's where the money comes in. Like, that's why I asked him for stuff, because that's what it was. He would send me money. He would offer to buy me things. I would block him. And then he would send me money. He'd be like, I'll buy you this. I'll buy you that. I'll do this for you. I'll do that for you. I mean, there was a point in February where I had not spoken to him. Like, there was a big point in February where he had been blocked, and he just kept zelling me and zelling me and zelling me and zelling me. And
can I say the words that she said, or?
Sure. I need for you to tell me what went on.
That I'm not on that whole shit. I'm not with that whole shit.
And I left him blocked. And then I do not remember the reason that I unblocked him. It was probably,
that's what she's trying to say. And yeah, we don't believe her either.
He would just email me these things and be like, oh, I'll give you this much money if you unblock me. I'll give you this much money if you unblock me. So it's like, it got to a point where I would just unblock him because he would send me money. And I was like, okay, so that's essentially what it was, is it was a very manipulative, toxic situation. He showed up to my house one night. He had ordered me like some clothes that I had wanted.
You knew exactly what you were doing. He is creepy. Grant the order. I don't care. But you knew exactly what you were doing, and you were trying to extract money from him. That's fine. He deserves it. He's a dopey simp. They'll always, if he doesn't give it to you, he'll give it to the next chick. It doesn't really matter. But don't pretend you're innocent in front of anybody with a brain. It's insulting.
And he'd had these for a few months, but he had been blocked, so I never got them. And that's where you can see in the emails, he emails from his son's account, hello, I'm in Olympia today, was going to drop your dairy boy off, but you're not responding, something like that. He's emailing me from his son's email because he's blocked. And he eventually came over and he dropped it off. This was probably, I don't know, this was like maybe a month ago. And he shows up and I'm like, okay, like you can drop it off, and I don't really want you to be here. And then he proceeds to tell me that he has a brain tumor. That's what he texts me, that he has a brain tumor, and he just wants to be around somebody and all this stuff. Like, that's stuff that he would do to me. It was very, very manipulative.
And then, so I heard Mr. Klingel talk about back in November, there was, sounds like that may have been around when the two of you earlier in the relationship. And there was conversation about, I think, an abortion. and then a list of essentially he alleged there a list of demands, and then you wouldn't get one. And think, do you want to talk? Do you have a response to what he was saying there?
Well, I think that so actually initially, if I wish I would have submitted it, but he offered to put he offered that. He said, if you don't get an abortion, I'll put the car in your name. That was his idea, not mine. And there's text messages where I tell him, no, that's like not a bargaining token. And then I was like, okay, like maybe I can do that. And then that's what we agreed to. And I think it was Thanksgiving. I was at my mom's house. He went nuts on me, went crazy, was accusing me of all this stuff, texting me, blowing my phone up. I was with my friend Addison, and he just went crazy. And then I think it was a day or two after that or something, I scheduled my appointment because I was like, I'm not doing this. And he had already put the car in my name. And to be honest, I don't really think that the car has much to do with me wanting a restraining order. I mean, there's yes, there's a lot of back and forth, but I mean, there's also a pattern.
Did the two?
Oh my God, dude. If she was ever pregnant and not lying to you in the first place, the odds that it is your child are absolutely astronomically low. You've got to be kidding me.
Two of you have, at this point, do the two of you have any reason to communicate, or do you share any property? I understand there's this argument over the car, but
no, I want no communication with him. That's
Your Honor, we're both on that.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Mr. Klingel.
Okay.
You'll have a chance to testify again because I do have some follow-up questions.
So we are both on the car title. So I guess I mean that, but that's probably something that would have to take me to court for, like different court. But other than that, no. I mean, I don't want contact with him because it's just like he stated that he did not email me after the 26th. Yes, he did. You can see in the Zells, it's the 29th, the 30th, the 31st. My mom had to text him and let him know because he would not leave me alone. I did not want to unblock him and have to text him and tell him to leave me alone because I had already told him, leave me alone. There was just a lot that had led up to this. Yes, I did things that I'm not proud of, obviously. But it was very manipulative. Like, I'm young.
Oh, it's easy to understand. That's just taking the easy way.
And naive at times. And I just was being showered with these gifts and these words and stuff that was untrue. And then finally I got to my breaking point, and this is, I don't want contact with him. That was my whole point. I had had enough, essentially.
And so outside of the car situation, there's no reason for the two of you to interact or communicate.
No, not at all.
All right. So Mr. Klingel, back to you. So it sounds like both of you are on the title for this Mercedes. In your view, at this point, is there any reason for the two of you to communicate or have anything, friends or property in common, anything like that? Apart from
Your Honor, no, but if I could add some things.
Yeah, and I think so at this point, I think both sides have had an opportunity to kind of summarize their exhibits and make their points because there has been a lot of back and forth and kind of given the volume of exhibits and things like that. I think it makes sense to give each side a couple of minutes to kind of offer some concluding remarks. So Mr. Klingel, we're with you, so we'll stay with you. And so if there's, I'm not going to put a time limit on it necessarily, but we'll definitely keep it under 5 minutes. But so if you have some concluding remarks you'd like to make, go ahead. Now's your opportunity.
Okay. Well, Your Honor, so in the petition, the word threatened was mentioned 5 times. The message, well, I haven't seen all 100 messages, but the message evidence that I saw, there was no threats ever made. I didn't threaten to shoot myself. It was, I'm probably better dead. And yeah, I don't know. I had some prepared, but then there was so much testimony that she added that wasn't on the petition, and stuff that was on the petition wasn't talked about. But I just asked that it be dismissed. I wanted it to be dismissed with prejudice because there was no threats ever made. I submitted evidence of the mom calling me December 6th after the whole abortion thing. I made a police report December 6th stating to the officer that I just didn't feel safe. And she mentions manipulation, but I've submitted multiple pieces of evidence of the petitioner reaching out to me saying, I need money.
I'm probably better dead is not an explicit threat, but it's an implicit threat, and it's pathetic, and it's sad, and it's manipulative. That's nothing to be proud of. You want a free pass on that? No.
Have sex with you. I need this. I'll send you pictures, and I've submitted all that. So it was a lot of the conflict was mutually aggressive, in which I can't see what she submitted. But if you add the timelines, the majority of the time, the petitioner was the instigator. And yeah, that's what I had to say, Your Honor.
There is a word for that, isn't there?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Klingel. Ms. Brennan, over to you. I think...
Can I add something that's really important?
Well, so how about this? So I can hear from non-parties if their testimony would be what's called necessary and material. Necessary being I can't make a decision essentially without hearing from them, and material being that they're relevant to the allegations here. And so I think before swearing you in, if you maybe want to tell me what's the nature of what you'd like to add.
He just brought me up.
Mm-hmm.
He just said that.
So you'd like to respond to what he was saying there?
Most definitely.
Okay. All right. Well, given that you've been kind of brought in here, and you are referenced in the exhibits here, I think that does make sense. So, ma'am, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Oh,
okay,
great.
Go ahead. And make sure, though, that you do keep it limited
find
to
out where she
responding
gets
to
it from.
how he's brought you into this.
Okay, so I can only reference what he just spoke about, or can I just reference just real quick?
I would like to just keep it to what he's referencing. Again, we have to be really careful when we bring in non-parties to testify. So if you want to at least start with responding to what he's brought up.
Okay, so this whole relationship has been crazy lies. Speaking of which, that he just brought up that he called the police on December 6th on me, which would have been a Sunday, after him and I got into a big, huge argument, text and over the phone on December 5th about abortion, which is like not appropriate. He called me and told me that my daughter was pregnant and that she was going to get an abortion. And then he was blowing her up the weekend that she did it. So that Saturday, called her 10 or 15 times, texting her. I asked him to please leave her alone. Please, I'm begging you, stop. And I had done this several times in the course of this relationship. Asked them, they needed to go their separate ways. This was toxic, it wasn't healthy. So back to what he was referencing.
If the daughter was ever pregnant, the mom knew before this guy did. I guarantee you. I guarantee you.
When we were last in court last Monday and he brought my name up and said that he was scared of me, I was like, what? Because I didn't understand. And when we left here, I called the police department twice. So he is lying because he did call the police on December 6th, and I spoke to Officer Parks, is who he spoke to. And I forgot it in my car, but I wrote everything down that they told me. And they said that he called about the car. Nothing was brought up about me. Nothing was brought up about safety. Nothing was brought up about anything. And they told him his name was Officer Parks. Sunday at like 1:30 or something, and they spoke to him over the phone, and they told him it was a civil matter and there's no like pending case or anything. And I asked if I could get a copy of it, and the officer told me, well, you can, but there's really no point because it's exactly what I just told you. There was nothing about you, nothing about your daughter or harm or feeling unsafe or anything like that. It was about the car.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
So I mean, this just establishing the base of everything out of his mouth is not necessarily the truth.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to hear from Miss Brennan next, Kennedy Brennan.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thank you for that stupid and completely irrelevant interjection. For that, you've earned it. You've earned it. I've got one question for you before we move along.
Ma'am, are you a whore?
So
I think, yeah, if you'd like to provide some less.
Could I just add that, because I feel like this is important. I was talking to my dad on Wednesday of last week, and I don't know if you can see it in there, but Andrew had reached out to my father after he had been served. So he had been served, I think it was December, or it was, I don't know what day it was it April 7th? April 7th or April 8th? He had been served, and then he had reached out to my dad 30 minutes after he was served and sent my dad pictures of me. He sent my dad text messages between us. It was stating, your daughter's going to pull some or pin some bullshit like this on me. She had an abortion. She did this. She did that. All this stuff in retaliation to being served. And I just think that that's important because I feel like that is harassment at that point. I mean, he's reaching out to my family. Why does my dad need to know that? My dad doesn't need to know that. What happened was between him and I, not between him and my dad. I'm 27 years old. I'm not. And I just feel like that was inappropriate. I mean, right after he was served.
Well, he knew it would upset her father because he's super religious, and it did. After he'd already reached out to me about it, after he'd already sent me pictures, the day that I said that Kennedy was going to the courthouse with her father.
All right. Does she still have the car? I'm more and more thinking this is just about keeping the car. Get an order against him so he can't ask for the car back.
He then said, okay. And then he said to me, oh, you want to bring the authorities into this? Probably not a good idea. And then he sent me a picture of Kennedy sleeping, holding her phone. He's like, this is your daughter doing drugs, doing this. I mean, it's just, and I'm like, okay. And I don't respond because I don't want to engage. Threatening to tell her brother because her brother's super religious what she did. Which, I mean, I don't condone what she did, but also in the same breath, all that has gone through over the last year, she's probably told him 50 times over the phone, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. He's busted into my house, into my bedroom when I was like in my pajamas.
Okay. All right. So we're going to try to stay focused. It's okay. But I do have a follow-up question. The page that has the text from Mr. Klingel to, I think, your father.
Yeah.
It also shows there was 6 photos. Those are the
text
photos you're referencing?
messages, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So since I'm going to be careful to not keep going back and forth. So I think the last word before I make a decision here, Mr. Klingel, I'll let you kind of respond because I know now we've got testimony from Miss Brennan and her mother here. And so I'll give you a last chance here. I want to keep it though to the allegations here about reaching out to Miss Brennan's parents and family. There is in the 101 batch, but a April 7th text apparently from you for her father with some pictures. And so I'll give you a chance to respond to that, and then I'll make my decision.
Okay. Yeah. And Your Honor, they keep mixing words and saying things that I'm saying that I didn't say. But I submitted evidence of the petitioner saying, at least I wasn't sexually or accused of sexually assaulting my own daughter. Where another time where she's the instigator, she says, I'm the dumbest mother effer. I mean, I submitted this. I'm the dumbest mother effer. She says all this, and then she goes on, and then the petitioner goes on to say, all my family knows what you have done. So I don't have it in front of me, but I've submitted, all my family knows what you have done. And so I didn't think it was threatening or illegal to defend your reputation when someone themselves said they told your family everything that you've done. So I didn't think it was illegal to defend your reputation. Also, she stated in the messages, go ahead and text them. He'd probably kick your ass. And also, I didn't think it was illegal or threatening to send messages that are mine, that I'm involved in. They've already been published. So yeah, I don't know. I live in Lewis County. I used to see these people at the gym. The petitioner stated I could send them. And also, like I said, it was defending my reputation. And also regarding the police thing, what I told the police officer, they write it down, and his name's not even Parks, but they write it down. I can't control everything he wrote down. But I did call on December 6th and spoke with them and filed a report. And I'm still in contact. So
Okay. All right, thank you all. So here's what I'm focused on, as I said in sort of the overview of the unlawful harassment statute. I pointed this out because this usually does become kind of a point of contention in these hearings. I'm looking at element number 3. Was there communication for a legitimate purpose? And factors the court looks at are things like, was there contact that was initiated by the respondent after given clear notice that further communication is unwanted, but then communication persists? The crux of the argument on that front is that there's relative agreement, I think, that on or around March 6th, Ms. Brennan did give Mr. Klingel notice that she didn't want any further communication from him, and that there was at least some communication after that through these Zelle messages. Mr. Klingel's response is that if you put that communication in context, where just the day before on March 25th in the evening, there was communication initiated by Ms. Brennan, the petitioner, and that this had also happened in the past, where Ms. Brennan asked that Mr. Klingel stop contacting him, and then communication continued. And so Mr. Klingel, we've provided some testimony that in that context, then March 26th wasn't necessarily clear notice, but it was reasonable for him to conclude that wasn't really notice that she wanted him to stop, because in the past that notice had been given, and then she re-engaged. And that's not a uncommon thing for respondents in these orders to point out, that there's a history where clear communication of not wanting contact anymore, that the person who says they don't want to be contacted then re-engages. And my position on that is that is not a valid argument. That may be accurate as far as what has happened in the past. But when somebody says that they don't want any further communication, even if they've said it in the past and then they re-engage you later, when they say they don't want any contact anymore, and they go as far as to block someone from communication, then that's clear notice that they don't want communication anymore. And persistent communication after that is not legitimate contact. And I think in this case, what adds to the strength of Ms. Brennan's argument that this was not legitimate contact is the nature of the messages sent through Zelle. The messages would be, again, it looks like messages for as low as 1 cent to $1, which indicates to me that the purpose wasn't necessarily to send money, but to send a message. And then the content of the message, again, I'm just pulling some out of the exhibits: $50 to unblock. Unblock, I'll send you 100, $1,500 for dinner. Please, I'll be nice. Going to ignore me, I'm going to move on and talk to others. So that indicates to me that there was knowledge on the part of Mr. Klingel that Ms. Brennan had blocked him, didn't want any more communication, and that communication persisted. through these Zelle messages. And so whether or not there was notice in the past for him to stop that continued, again, what I'm focused on is what happened more recently. And I think given the nature of the communication in March and after March 26th, I think that was communication made after there was clear notice that Ms. Brennan didn't want any further communication. I also find that it is relevant that while Ms. Brennan's parents and family were not parties to any kind of order, and they're still not, you know, the nature of the communication from Mr. Klingel to Ms. Brennan in the last few weeks, I think that the nature of them being without a legitimate purpose is strengthened by the fact that there was some outreach to her parents that are of a nature that, while Mr. Klingel is categorizing it as wanting to defend his reputation to people who have been told things that are bad about him, at the same time, it's reaching out to the protected party's parents when there is a temporary no contact order put in place, which is not a technical violation of that order, but I think that does provide some context to the type of communication that is at issue here. So I do find that Ms. Brennan has met her burden of proof in proving unlawful harassment by a preponderance of the evidence. As far as the restraint provisions, they're going to be a little bit different than what's in the petition. I'll go over those now, so everyone's clear about what is and is not allowed. Is this the, yeah, okay. So given the nature of the communication that I'm finding to be unlawful harassment, I'm going to include a no contact restraint provision, and that's no contact, including non-physical contact directly, indirectly, through third parties, regardless of whether those third parties know about the order. And there is a built-in exception, which may be relevant here, except for service of court documents. So if there is any kind of litigation around title to this car, that's automatically built in as an exception here. But to the extent there's anything else, there's going to be that no contact provision. It sounds like the parties do not live near each other, and so I do think that because the nature of the relationship, and it sounds like there's been past visits to each other's homes, there's also going to be an exclude or stay away from provision. The default's to 1,000 feet, which doesn't sound like it's going to be a problem in this case, but it's 1,000 feet away from Miss Brennan, as well as her person, her home, and her work. I know there was a request in the petition with respect to stalking. That doesn't sound like that was really part of the petition. I understand the way stalking is described sometimes can get confused with anti-harassment, but I'm not going to include a no stalking behavior. And then simply, and then finally, there's going to be a no harm provision. So that is, do not cause any physical harm or other types of harm to the protected party. So those are going to be the restraint provisions. Given that the parties no longer have a relationship, don't have any other need to contact each other. I understand their names are both on the title here, but those restraint provisions of do not do any harm, have no contact except for legal proceedings, and exclude or stay away from with 1,000 feet buffer, I think hopefully should protect Ms. Brennan here, as well as doesn't sound like it will interfere with Mr. Klingel's life too much as well. So I'll be signing that order today. Mr. Klingel, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Brennan, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. And Ms. Brennan's mother, I didn't actually catch your name.
Stacy.
Stacy, do you have any questions, ma'am?
No.
Okay.
So, no.
So the order will be in place for a year. Ms. Brennan, if you would like to renew the order, you're allowed to file a motion to renew anytime 90 days up to the expiration date, which will be a year from today. And then Mr. Klingel, so you know, if on a motion to renew protection order, the burden of proof switches to the respondent who has to show a change in circumstances, essentially. So that's not here today, but that's how those work. All right. There's no more service requirements. Folks, we're all here today. You can get a copy of the order off the Thurston County District Court website. Mr. Klingel, if you have any trouble accessing the protection order, it sounds like you may have had some trouble accessing some exhibits, call the Thurston County District Court Civil Department, and they can maybe help you get a copy of it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Klingel. And thank you, Ms. Brennan. You're all free to go. Just going to fill this out quickly since I already did half of it.
That was absolutely despicable. I loved it. Just terrible. Just awful people doing awful things. The only thing that would have made it worse is a marriage.
Love, exciting and new.
He still got off light.
All right. So, cause number 26-117, David Musgrave versus Adam Rainey.
Yeah, that surprised me. I thought I was like all sweet because like mom's here and out of respect, I'm like, oh, mom's here and she's probably embarrassed. And then she opened her mouth and I'm like, screw mom. She's the whole problem.
We got Mr. Musgrave here in court, Mr. Rainey on Zoom. Good morning to you both. Come on up, Mr. Musgrave. All right, just closing out the exhibits from that prior case. All right. So I know folks have been here before. Same parties have been here with positions switched. And a lot of the allegations here are sort of grounded in similar allegations. So I think we're all familiar enough with the allegations here and the responses. So rather than go over an overview here, I think what I'm going to do is give each side sort of just essentially a bit of a time limit to kind of summarize your allegations or the response, and then I'll make a decision here rather than kind of go piece by piece. I know Mr. Musgrave, you've outlined a couple of different buckets of allegations here. And so rather than me kind of go through those point by point, I'll give you some time to talk and can let me know which ones you'd like to focus on.
Sure.
All right. So it's 10:40. I think what we'll do is we'll give each side 5 minutes. And if I have some follow-up questions, we can have this be a little bit more dynamic. But again, I don't have any specific questions. I think it makes a little more sense to have folks just provide some testimony. So Mr. Musgrave, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide us the truth and the whole truth? All right, go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure.
And you also don't have to take up the full, if you want to just say, I rest on what I've filed, that's okay.
Well, you probably read through all of this.
I have read, it looks like everything through April 20, so last Thursday. Okay. I know looks like exhibits were uploaded, and so I've read everything through that.
And a lot of these are from the previous one. Okay. So issues. I think I stated the problems. What I'm requesting is that, the main thing is that the cameras are that are aimed at our backyard are removed, that the recordings of our private conversations are stopped and deleted, and that Adam and his family are served notice of trespass from our property. I also wanted to address the photo of the camera in the window. There was a heat signature there. I don't know how an empty box would have that. And the and that being a protection order violation of the photo. I don't know if you saw the Adams reported it to the police that was a violation of the protection order. I understood we were talking video cameras recording, which have all been taken care of, not a photo of evidence, which is what I considered that. If I had thought that was part of the order, well, I'm not stupid, I wouldn't have done that. But I didn't consider a photo the same as the video recordings. And as you can see also in this, I have addressed those cameras. They are now moved, covered, so there are no video cameras in my backyard that are recording anything of Adam's house.
So I do actually have a question, since it sounds like you raised it. So you have alleged there are cameras aimed at your backyard, and I know that Mr. Rainey there has essentially responded that the camera referenced in you took a picture of one of the windows at Mr. Rainey's home.
And it was an empty box.
And yeah, saying that was I think a Funko box. Were there other cameras?
I saw 3 different heat signatures, and I didn't photograph the other ones because they were on the first floor. But that one, they would not have been able to see what I was doing the week before in my backyard from those other cameras, but they would have been able to see it from a camera on the second floor, which was why I pointed that one out in particular. Yeah, anyway.
All right. And if
yeah,
you'd like to, I mean, you summarized everything rather well. I think maybe, if you'd like to just kind of rest on your summary of everything, I can turn it over to Mr. Rainey to talk about his response. And if I have follow-up questions too, then maybe I can start asking questions that way.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah. Like I said, if you read through it, I'm fairly comfortable with what I.
All right, I did read through that. So, okay, Mr. Rainey, what we'll do is we'll put you under oath. So if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide in this matter is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And yes, Mr. Rainey, for your benefit, I did review, looks like you filed a 6-page response on April 23rd, and I did read that. And so I did see the response with respect to that alleged camera maybe being a Funko box. I'm curious if you want to talk a little bit more about the Ring camera. I mean, I'll sort of be upfront. One reason why I granted the hearing was I know that the order in which Mr. Rainey is the protected party was grounded on privacy in the backyard. And so allegations that Mr. Musgrave made about similar violations of his privacy on filming in his backyard and into windows into his home, and then the private conversations being recorded, that more than anything else really formed the basis of my granting a hearing. Mr. Rainey, you've sort of addressed each of those directly in your responses. So those are the things that I was also concerned about, that I really set the hearing to address. And so I know that you're saying the camera the alleged camera facing his backyard is that Funko box. And that you've provided as well some exhibits showing that the Ring camera on the side of your home that I think Mr. Musgrave was saying go films into his window, and that may have been the camera that picked up the conversation that was brought up in the prior hearing when you were the petitioner.
Do we do the prior hearing on this?
Or that they're no longer being used, or that the audio has been turned off, things like that. If you want to speak to those issues.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Those were the things. Any cameras facing his backyard, cameras facing in his windows, and anything that picked up audio in an area where someone has a reasonable expectation of privacy. You've addressed those in your exhibits. Those were also top of mind for me. So if you want to direct your comments there, that's
certainly. Yeah, the box that's my daughter's window. It's just the empty toy box. We don't have any cameras in our backyard at all. And as far as the Ring camera, Mr. Musgrave at our last hearing said that it was offline already because he noticed the lights. So it's been off since then and non-functional. As a courtesy, we understand his concern and we turned it off. It was off that day. As far as seeing his backyard, we put a fence up so he doesn't have to see in our backyard any longer. So we don't have to see him. And we knew the fence we put up because he said he was going to do maintenance at our last hearing. So we just preemptively put the fence up in case he wanted to take the fence down, since we depend on it for our pets. There's no contact from us from his side. He has 30 cameras facing our house. Not one time has he recorded anyone trespassing. So all these allegations are just untrue.
all right. So I think what I'm going to do is run through my notes on the different claims here, and kind of let folks hear where I'm at. So number one.
No, that guy was Mitch Cumstein.
Again, primary reason that I found grounds to set the hearing is allegations of cameras on Mr. Rainey's property facing into Mr. Musgrave's backyard, that those need to be removed. I'm hearing that there's two ways that Mr. Musgrave is substantiating those claims. Number one is viewing what was believed to be a camera that having reviewed the photo myself, not just the one blown up by Mr. Rainey, but the photo that was included in Mr. Musgrave's petition. I agree, at least to me, if you really look at it, and I have Funko boxes myself at home, and it does appear to be a Funko box. Now, Mr. Musgrave is saying that the cameras he has show heat signatures around that area, as well as that Mr. Rainey or his family know about where he may have been at certain times, and sort of that being circumstantial evidence that he's being recorded. Frankly, I don't know if that meets the preponderance of the evidence standard, that it's more likely than not that forms the basis of me being able to conclude that Mr. Rainey has cameras pointed at your backyard. So at this point, I don't think that there's anything in the exhibits or in the evidence that I can look to say, all right, there are cameras that by court order Mr. Rainey needs to remove. The issue that I was concerned about when the petition was filed was that camera on the side of the house, because I do recall from the first hearing that there was a camera on Mr. Rainey's side of his house that did pick up that private conversation from Mr. Rainey. I know, Mr. Musgrave, you've also inquired in the exhibits, kind of what do we do with that? And I think that was addressed at that prior hearing. The remedy by law in that case is the content of what is recorded without consent is not admissible as evidence against someone in a civil hearing, and it was excluded in that last hearing. I didn't consider that, and
it's excluded from evidence.
So you had asked in this petition, you had asked what was the remedy of of your conversation being recorded, right, without your consent. And what I was saying is, well, the remedy occurred at that last hearing, which is under the statute that says you're not allowed to record someone without their consent. It says the consequence of that is if that evidence is attempted to be used against the person who was recorded, then that evidence is suppressed and not used. And so at that last hearing, I did not consider that as evidence against you.
In that particular
yes.
area.
And so
is it still a crime?
Well, and that's where, you're welcome to call police if you think a crime is being committed. I'm not going to make any kind of conclusion about something being a crime or not being a crime. And it sounds like Mr. Rainey in response has provided evidence that that camera is no longer
But it could be turned right back on.
Sure. But in order for the court to issue some kind of order in an anti-harassment protection order, there needs to be a knowing and willful course of conduct that's persisting. And from my view of the evidence is that you've discovered that a camera on Mr. Rainey's property had picked up a conversation as part of that prior hearing. We addressed it, and it sounds like at this point that camera was then turned off and not recording anymore. And so, you're saying, well, what if he turns it back on? The court's going to need evidence of an ongoing pattern of behavior of you being recorded, your conversations being recorded, in order for the court to have grounds to take any action against.
But even if that camera is turned on, it doesn't have to necessarily record me to be looking into.
Right. Well, and it sounds like though that camera's off.
For now, that's why I'd asked that it be moved someplace where it can't be looking directly into our house.
Yeah, and that's so I'm not going to sort of prospectively order cameras that aren't currently being alleged to have violated someone's privacy.
I had to move mine.
Right, because those cameras were on, right, and they were pointed at.
But they were the view of his property was blocked by the camera. Those cameras have the one that they were concerned about has the ability to block that part of its view.
Right. Well, in my understanding, Mr. Rainey, is that the camera on the side of the house was that moved? I can't remember now. I don't recall from your.
Camera on the side of the home.
Go ahead, Mr. Rainey.
The camera on the side of the home is disabled. It's deleted, and the battery is removed. It's non-functional.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so, and the other thing with that one, with that camera in particular, is, my concern there was primarily around the audio recording. And because when it comes to where people can put their Ring cameras to capture video versus audio, it is a little bit different because that's why people have Ring cameras, right? They film the sidewalk, they film someone's front door, they film the driveway. You do not have a reasonable expectation of privacy in places where you're already sort of out in public. If being familiar with these properties, the camera is filmed, or the camera was pointed at the end over the side door entrance to Mr. Rainey's home that did capture a portion of Mr. Musgrave's home, but this is also an unfenced side yard that
it is fenced.
That pictures.
It's completely fenced. It had a gate. It had a fenced gate as well. In fact, that's one of the things I recently included was so you could see that there was a gate and there was a fence that was there. But
the camera at issue, right, is I'm looking at the picture of the two homes now, and the camera at issue is over the side entrance to Mr. Rainey's home that is exposed to the front yard and the street. And is that right?
No, the side door is exposed to the street. It used to be the garage. They added the door off the side of the garage. Their entrance is like 30 feet away around the corner, the entrance to the front of the house. That
So
that side door is
the-
not used for public entrance.
Okay,
at
right,
all.
but so the side door, this is the camera that you're concerned had picked up the audio from the first case. Is that
And
right?
looks into our house.
Right, so
Right.
so I'm looking at, now I'm going back to, I think you put the screenshot from the incident where your audio was picked up.
Right.
So I'm looking at the camera, and unless things have changed, what I can see is is you talking to your friend. I can see Nova Middle School, I can see the street, I can see the sidewalk. This area is not.
Okay, it's hard to see, but right there in the photo is one of the fence posts.
Right, but but this is what the view looks like. Isn't that right? The view in the camera.
Right, it's looking over the top of the fence.
Right. So the reason I'm bringing this up is, this is an area where a Ring camera can go. The issue isn't for this camera. The issue was picking up audio without consent, right? Because it is yes, it is part of your house is on the camera,
and it was in a fenced-in area. There was a
right, but I mean more the fence here. It's not when we're talking about a fence in this context, we're talking about, is this a fence that if you're on the other side of it, it's indicating you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. And here, the area being filmed by the Ring camera is exposed all the way. Again, I'm looking at Nova Middle School. I mean, so it's across the street. You can see into this area. So you being in this area doesn't necessarily give rise to a reasonable expectation of privacy. Now, again, your audio being recorded without your consent is a different issue. And that's the issue that we took up in that first case. And it sounds like Mr. Rainey has disabled that feature as part of this camera. The camera itself, though, as a Ring camera is traditionally used, this is not a place that I think is violating anyone's reasonable expectation of privacy. Because again, it is in an area that is fully exposed to the sidewalk, the street over.
The street.
Yeah, but I find that
80 feet from that school.
But I think that the position of the camera, I think, is not something I'm concerned with as far as a violation of a reasonable expectation of privacy. It was the audio recording for that camera in particular. Going down the line, you've also brought up essentially wanting Mr. Rainey and his family to be served notice of trespassing. And it's the grounds there. So first of all, there's nothing about the anti-harassment process that has a formal relationship with a trespass notice. You as a private property owner are free, and sounds like you have put up no trespassing signs on your property. The way the unlawful harassment process act with that is if there is trespassing that then also meets the definitions that we've gone over before, trespassing happening as a ongoing course of conduct for the purpose of harassing that reasonably causes substantial emotional distress. You've alleged that Mr. Rainey's daughters, again, have gone onto your property to retrieve Amazon boxes, and that there's been occasional times when they've walked across your
daughter and son, after the no trespassing sign and fence were up, snuck across the front yard, rather than walk around, come up the driveway, which is what I understand is the proper path to the front door when there's no trespassing signs.
And so there's a difference. There's three types of trespassing here. So there's criminal trespassing, right, where you would, and you have called the police saying, someone is coming onto my property without my permission. And so, if you feel that is happening and someone is criminally trespassing against you because they have notice not to come onto your property and they're doing it anyway, you call the police. That's a criminal matter. There's civil trespassing where you have to show that this is causing me some kind of damage. And, there you have to actually show, there's this level of damage. For purposes of harassment, again, there needs to be trespassing to a point where it's a knowing and willful course of conduct happening for the purpose of harassing a specific person, and that causes substantial emotional distress.
The incidents I have brought up with the contractors.
Well, now, and again, we can't just say trespassing for a bunch of different people. We have to stay focused on specific allegations. So you've alleged that Mr. Rainey's daughters are trespassing as grounds for anti-harassment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's just one. That's like the last incident, but there were
right. But you at
least a half a dozen incidents before that where I had to keep telling people to get off of my property.
The daughters in particular?
Huh?
The daughters in particular?
No.
Well, that's why, again,
the Rainey's contractors who kept using my lawn.
So that's the contractors. That's a different issue too. So we'll get to the contractors.
But they were telling them to use my lawn.
Okay, but we're going to stay on the daughters for a second. Okay, because you have to allege trespassing against someone, right? And so you
let's stay on the daughters.
You can't say I'm being trespassed against by these people and and the contractors.
I had also pointed out the roofing people. That was one of the
that's right.
Specific incidents.
So staying on the daughters though, I don't think that there's trespassing by Mr. Rainey's daughters in a way that satisfies the unlawful harassment statute. I don't think there's a pattern of behavior of them coming onto your lawn.
I thought that repeated trespassing.
Even if it happens more than once, again, that there needs to be an ongoing course of conduct that.
Your allegation is they're collecting Amazon packages. What kind of a maniac do you have to be to object to that? Shut your hole.
Rises to the level of causing.
Well, that's why I was mentioning all the contractors that led up to me having to put the fence up and the signs up and the cameras up.
Hang on. The point that you're missing is you need to allege trespassing against specific individuals.
Okay.
Right. And so you're saying you were trespassed because Mr. Rainey's contractors and roofers, a couple of years ago used the part of your property for their work, and then also
will have been ongoing over the last 2.5 years.
So you need to. There needs to be more of a focused allegation, because I can't just say, the world around Mr. Rainey's property that is trespassing against you. There needs to be specific instances that you're tying these allegations to against specific people. Right. And so you've alleged, number one, Mr. Rainey's daughters trespassing against
and the roofers and the
They aren't party to this action, dummy. Stop asking. If they were, you would lose, but they're not even part of it. Shut up.
Paver installers.
All right. So I'm not finding that any of this rises to a level of an ongoing course of conduct, a knowing and willful course of conduct, that there's trespassing happening. Now, if you're against you, if you've alleged many times that you think there is property damage on your property from Mr. Rainey's contractors and the roofers, right? And I think you've also acknowledged that is property damage, and that's if you want to bring a small claims action or any other kind of lawsuit against Mr. Rainey for property damage, that's different than unlawful harassment,
which is planned. Yeah.
Right. So that's different than unlawful harassment. So
I still
don't give him ideas. You'll lose that too. There's no cause of action that you have against these girls. Period. Shut up.
Dan, like I said, the pavers, the roofers. There was the one photograph that I included that showed all of the different projects that are on that side of the house that he has had contractors stage those projects on my lawn. And I've had to go out there and tell those contractors to move their stuff off of the lawn.
I know, and to the extent that you have alleged that those contractors are coming onto your lawn to stage the work, I'm finding that that's not a knowing and willful course of conduct for the purpose of harassing you that would reasonably cause substantial emotional distress. if you,
He knew that I told them to stop doing that, and he would still send them over there.
right, no, I understand. And again, to the extent you have a property damage claim that you would like to litigate, that needs to just be litigated. That's not for unlawful harassment.
Yeah. I understand that's completely different. I just feel like there has been a pattern of trespassing.
And I understand. So Mr. Rainey, maybe it would be helpful too, if you'd like to maybe provide some concluding remarks on, when you've got contractors doing home improvement projects, where you're telling them to go. If you're, having them avoid, coming on to
remarks.
We actually do. Anyone that comes to our home to do any kind of work at all, we tell them to avoid that side of the yard because Mr. Musgrave will come out and yell at them and say things to them. So we tell them just avoid that area altogether, and they stay on the other side. I mean, I don't know where he's coming up with that. They're walking there constantly. We haven't had any work done in years, and honestly, it's kind of ridiculous. And the only other thing I would like to address is Mr. Musgrave has cameras pointed directly at our driveway 24/7. He claims in his filings, and then he's posting the videos up on YouTube. And I don't understand how that is different than his claim that we're recording him from a Ring camera.
Right. Okay. So I want to stay on
disgusting,
the contractors piece of it. So
the roofers were there this year, not years ago.
Right. Well, if I understand,
you might want to file a doxing claim against him.
The thing about roofing is they were very careful. There's a dumpster in the front of the house they were scraping into, but there's wind, things accidentally blow over. It was like one piece that fell on our side of the yard that he threw over. So I mean, this allegation that people are throwing stuff on his yard is unfounded and ridiculous, to be honest.
Yeah. So we're gonna put that allegation to rest. So Mr. Musgrave, I understand you're frustrated. Sounds like in your mind that there's ongoing trespassing on your property from contractors working for Mr. Rainey.
Why the fence and the signs are there?
Right,
and the cameras.
Right, I understand. For purposes of getting an unlawful harassment order, I'm not finding that constitutes a knowing and willful course of conduct that would reasonably cause substantial emotional distress, or that's engaged in for the purpose of harassing.
Thank you.
I find that that's just not in evidence at this point. Now, again, if you feel your property has been damaged or you think people are criminally trespassing, you have rights to call the police or to file a lawsuit. But at this point, I'm not finding there any grounds for unlawful harassment for what's been alleged there. On the recording piece of it, Mr. Rainey, to address your concern there, it was cameras pointed. Again, this is where we get into where is there a reasonable expectation of privacy, and it can get a gray area. There's a big difference between front yards, driveways, things like that are exposed to the world, and areas that are more private. The issue before was, again, this is why it's a gray area. When you're on the side of the house that is between the two of your homes, that is exposed to the sidewalk. But when it's a private conversation between two people kind of off on the side of the house on their own property, that's a little bit different than somebody out front in the driveway near a sidewalk. So for purposes of what kind of audio gets recorded, I think those are different situations. But again, I think for purposes of where your Ring camera is, as far as it not recording audio on the side of the house that reaches all the way over to Mr. Musgrave's property, that sounds like it's already been addressed, and you're not recording audio over that camera. But to the extent that Mr. Musgrave has cameras pointed at driveways and in the front yard and the sidewalk, that's clearly a public area where there's less of a reasonable expectation of privacy there. There was allegations about landscape trespassing, landscaping being over the property line. Again, there's a lot in the allegations around conflicts in property lines. Again, that's not something we address here at the anti-harassment calendar. Those disputes are litigated in Superior Court. So if they're if folks want to petition for a boundary line adjustment, do a quiet title action, to really verify where the property line is, again, that's a matter for Superior Court. We don't resolve that here.
Both his contractor and I know that you can find the steel pins in the plat.
And that's right. That's contractor's opinions on a property line is not, that's one thing. But if there's a legal dispute over property lines, that needs to be resolved.
I used the metal detector to find the steel pin at the front, which is one of those things I read is the way to find the property line.
So on balance here, again, the two things that I was primarily concerned with in the petition were if the fenced backyard area of Mr. Musgrave's property was being recorded by cameras on Mr. Rainey's property. That was my first concern. I think that has been addressed, and I'm not finding that there's evidence of that occurring by a preponderance of the evidence.
Your Honor.
Yep.
Am I able then to photograph the other cameras that I believe are there?
Hang on. We'll get back to that. The second is the camera on the side, the camera over the side entrance to Mr. Rainey's home, where there was originally the concern about private recording of private conversations without consent. Mr. Rainey indicated that camera no longer has that audio feature. There was evidence of that occurring one time. There's not evidence of a pattern of behavior or course of conduct where Mr. Musgrave's private conversations are being recorded. And so given that, and given the testimony from Mr. Rainey that audio feature has been turned off, I'm not finding grounds for an anti-harassment order on that front as well. We've addressed the trespassing and the property damage and the property line disputes as well as not relevant for anti-harassment orders. Mr. Musgrave has asked about, is he able to take pictures of Mr. Rainey's property as evidence that his privacy is being violated? There's an order in place, and I know there's a question about the current order and the restraint provisions in the current order where Mr. Rainey is the protected party and Mr. Musgrave is the respondent. There are 3 restraint provisions, and they say, number 1, there's no cameras recording petitioner's backyard or pointed at petitioner's windows. Number 2, no cameras on petitioner's side, so Mr. Rainey's side of the fence. Number 3, no pictures placed by Mr. Musgrave on Mr. Rainey's side of the boundary fence. So this seems to be a question about cameras recording Mr. Rainey's backyard or pointed at Mr. Rainey's window. Mr. Musgrave, if you feel that you're seeing evidence that your privacy is being violated by cameras pointed at your window, I'm not going to say you can't take that picture. The language of the anti-harassment order in place prohibits the recording of Mr. Rainey's backyard or cameras pointed at Mr. Rainey's windows. And I think in context too, it was recording cameras is what we were talking about.
Right. Yeah,
but at the same time, you got to be careful though, because there is this order here in place. And if you're doing things like taking pictures of the windows at Mr. Rainey's home, and it turns out to be a toy box or something like that, that's what you want to be careful about that. You really, you're going to want to have a little more solid evidence that your backyard is being recorded before taking pictures and doing things like that, and coming back to court. Okay, so I want to caution you.
I had picked up a heat source there. It looked like there was a camera lens. I realize now that's probably the part of the box.
Okay, but Mr. Musgrave, also be careful because you're talking about you've got a device picking up heat sources, right, at Mr. Rainey's home.
That was a few weeks ago.
Right, and so I remind you that there's this order in place saying you're not allowed to be recording or having cameras pointed at Mr. Rainey's windows or backyards. And so to the extent you have devices that are picking up heat signatures, right? I mean, you got to be careful about that.
It was my phone.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was just an app on the phone that does that. And so I checked one time to see, and like, I think I put in one thing that I saw 2 or 3 heat sources there.
You've established that you are a complete psychopath at this point. Stop talking.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and there's other ways to find cameras with their infrared or their blue light, night vision stuff. That's why I'm asking is, if there are still cameras over there, and I want to prove there are still cameras pointing at my backyard, am I allowed to do that?
Yes, you are, but you can't. I'm not going to give you legal advice, right? But that's you've heard what the petition against you says.
Right.
If you have a reasonable this whole thing started with allegations of infringement on a reasonable expectation of privacy, right? And so I would also caution you on, if your need to collect evidence of an invasion of your privacy raises to the level of you needing to get night vision goggles and heat sourcing. I mean, that's before, right? There were cameras pointed into Mr. Rainey's backyard that were causing emotional distress on the part of Mr. Rainey and his family, right? Part of the anti-harassment order statute, as I went in before, is the behavior alleged needs to cause someone substantial emotional distress, right? And so if you're needing to seek out that type of evidence against you, it also, there's an issue there. Are you feeling a substantial emotional distress because of something happening to you? Versus you going out and trying to find something that's going to.
I'm stressed. I'm very stressed. You could talk to my therapist about
I can
that.
tell. So again, I'm not going to give you legal advice, and I'm not going to say what is or is not a violation of the order. What I'm going to say is, if you want more specific questions answered about that, you can always talk to an attorney. And keep in mind that the order in place right now prohibits the recording of Mr. Rainey's backyard or recording. Having cameras pointed at Mr. Rainey's windows, given that he has a reasonable expectation of privacy.
And the cameras recording to me meant video. I didn't consider a photo recording. I understand. I have looked up to see whether a photo is considered a recording, and there is references to that in.
If this guy was my neighbor and doing this to my flamingos, I'd be going to jail. And he'd be going to the hospital.
Washington law, because it's a record. Mm-hmm. The photo is a record. It's yeah.
Okay.
But that's not, from a layman's term, what I thought we were talking about.
And there's not an allegation against you as part of this hearing. So
right, but there is an allegation against me based on that protection order
that's not being heard today. And again, I don't want to wade too far into those waters because that's not before the court right now.
I'm just trying to be clear about whether
and that's why I'm having this discussion, is because I do want to try to resolve confusion here so that folks aren't coming back to court. And unfortunately, the scenario you're bringing up, I think, has a lot of gray areas. So that's why all I'm going to do is caution you and advise you maybe talk to an attorney before you do things like that. Because
that's what I was asking. I'm not
right, and I can't give you legal advice on complying with the order. All I can do is read you the order and read you, what the unlawful harassment statute is. Mr. Rainey, do you have any questions? I know you've been here during all this.
No, I have no questions. I just want Mr. Musgrave to understand that we do not find him interesting enough to record him, to watch him. We don't have any feeling for him. So all this nonsense about whether to take pictures of my backyard are kind of silly because we don't care to do that and we have no cameras. So, I mean, that's all I have to say about that matter.
All right. Okay. Well, So that'll be it for today's hearing. So I'm not going to sign an order. Mr. Musgrave, if you have questions about what kind of conduct may or may not violate the order, I strongly suggest you talk to a lawyer, particularly if you get into this kind of gray area of using your phone to capture heat signatures and things like that. I'm not going to tell you if that's a violation or not, but I do suggest you talk to a lawyer before doing that.
Who does tell me? I'm confused.
A lawyer. You're going to have to talk to a lawyer who can give you legal advice.
My wife's an attorney,
Okay.
and I do talk to her, and she says,
Okay.
But she's like kind of confused by the same bit of the recordings and photo and whether that's what you intended by
Well,
that
the
order.
intent, this is the last thing I'll say, and I'll let folks go. The intent is to not infringe upon the Rainey's reasonable expectation of privacy, right? So that's the whole reason of this whole order and of the statute. Is part of the reason here is there an unreasonable infringement on a petitioner's reasonable expectation of privacy? So maybe it would be helpful to go back and not focus so much on the exact definition of what is a recording versus what is a photo. Think about what is a reasonable expectation of privacy, right? Because that is what the statute is intended to protect. And so is somebody using their cell phone with an app that reads heat signatures or night vision, but it's not necessarily recording? Does that violate this order? Again, I talk to an attorney. I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to tell you one way or another. I'm not going to give legal advice, but I do suggest that you think about what is the purpose of the order here, which is to protect a reasonable expectation of privacy, and whether or not observing that kind of data would make someone feel like their privacy is being infringed or not. So think about it that way. Again, I'm not going to provide any answers here. Think about it that way. I'm not going to sign an order today. And
what about his camera looking in our house?
We've addressed that.
I understand he's turned it off, but it's not that hard to turn it back on.
Well, again, we've addressed that already. So I'm not signing an order today. You're all free to go. Again, if you have questions about the order that's in place.
I kind of felt like, yeah, that's okay. It's there as long as he doesn't turn it back on. But if he turned it back on, then he would be violating a protection order. That's what I was hoping, because it's just that easy. It's like me pointing a camera at his backyard again.
Right, but
none are pointed there right now.
But it's not on right now, right? So what I would need is evidence of ongoing recording in a way that violates Mr. Rainey's reasonable expectation of privacy. The only evidence I had of that was the private conversation that had been recorded before. And that was one incident. And there hadn't been more. It sounds like it's been turned off. So there's not a basis for me to issue an order on that basis right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rainey. Thank you, Mr. Musgrave. That will be all for today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Oh my God, that was excruciating. I kind of loved it. I really did. Don't worry. I've got more. I'll do it at 7.